Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I represent a very rural district in Kentucky. It's a very poor district. We have a very high Medicaid population. I want to see people get off Medicaid and get into the workforce. To do that in my rural district, we're going to have to create an environment where we can attract better paying jobs that provide benefits. One of the biggest issues for me as a freshman member of Congress is to try to help improve broadband in my rural district. So I'm very interested in this subject. Mr. Allendorf, since your primary focus has been delivering electricity, can you talk a little bit about the regulatory obstacles that other folks on the panel may not have when building out their broadband capacity? Because we're going to have to do that, I would assume, through the electric cooperatives and the rural electric cooperatives in our district.
First, let me say that with our fiber project, we were able to utilize existing infrastructure much more than we were with fixed wireless solutions. Mm-hmm. So it requires less permitting, which is always a concern, both locally and from the state. So being able to use our overhead and underground infrastructure is a huge benefit. Regulatory challenges we face, pole attachments, something that always comes up. That's an issue. There's a federal case out of Missouri that dealt with pole attachments for fiber use by a cooperative. I believe that's currently still on appeal. We're anxiously waiting to see what the result of that is, to see what barriers there may be going forward to deploying broadband over our existing infrastructure.
Okay. Mr. Donovan, what kinds of reforms could help alter the outlook for a company interested in deploying broadband?
Thank you for the question. In Kentucky, carriers like Bluegrass Wireless and Appalachian Wireless,
cellular carrier.
It's a great company out of Elizabethtown. There, we're proud to have them as a member. One challenge that wireless carriers are facing now is the FCC's Mobility Fund has a lot of opportunity, making resources available to make that last piece, the economic case, to serve these rural areas. The biggest problem we have right now is the data. The map that they show on their website overstates coverage, and you have to take my word for it. It says at the bottom, these coverage calculations have certain limitations that result in overstatement of the extent of mobile coverage. Looking at it quickly, it looks like all of Iowa, most of Illinois, most of Kentucky, on down the line are fully served. I think, that's probably not the case, or else we wouldn't be here today talking about how we can get service out there. Before we decide, how $5 billion is going to be spent over the next decade and lock those areas out, we need to make sure that we're acting on sound data so that the unserved parts of your district are eligible to bid in that auction and gain support.
If Congress moves on an infrastructure bill with money for broadband, should that money go through the high-cost fund or through other programs or agencies such as RUS or NTIA?
So we have structures that are put in place through the FCC, like Mobility Fund. I think there's a unanimous agreement of the panel that USF is not fully funded today, so this could be a great opportunity to plus that up. The thing to also consider that is making sure that however the funds go out, that carriers that are receiving those can have some long-term certainty that those are going to be available, that you're not subjected to some of the fits and starts of the appropriations process moving forward.
Okay, very good. Mr. Romano, one last question here for you. Would it be better to get everybody connected even if it's at lower speeds, or should we focus on the future and invest more in developed technology? What's the right balance on that?
Thank you, Mr. Comer. That's the challenge that we faced, as I mentioned earlier, the tension that we face between trying to get the unserved, as many of the unserved covered as possible. However, if you're building a dirt road to everybody when you think you're going to have a lot of traffic there, you're potentially wasting resources. So we think it's best to try to strike a balance where you look to get the most future-proof networks you can, aim for the highest networks you can to as many people as possible. It may take a little bit of time, but the more we build for the future, the more we're going to attract the kinds of jobs and businesses that you were talking about. Somebody's not going to relocate a plant to a district to connect it to DSL.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.